What's up, everyone? OJ over here from PlayerEssence, and I'm supposed to be having a debate with FuriousRantz16. But unfortunately, I've sent him the leak, and he has not shown up. So I'm hoping that he's going to show up. I didn't want to keep you guys waiting too long. We had a talk this morning, and he told me that he might be a little late. I told him that if he's going to be late, let's just reschedule. He said, no, keep it the same time. You know, it's okay. Keep it the same time. I'm like, okay, but I'm on a really tight schedule this week because I'm uploading a lot of content for next week, because next week I won't be able to live stream for you guys. So I'm uploading a lot of content and getting that content ready for you guys. So I don't have a ton of time this week. I've been in editing craziness for pretty much this whole week. I've been editing multiple videos, so you guys have content to watch next week. So yeah, so I'm a little upset that he's not here, but I'm going to give him some time to get in here. But yeah, he should have told me that he wasn't going to be here, or that he was going to be late. All he said was, no, keep it the same time. 1 o'clock was fine. Right now we don't have a moderator, but trust me, guys, I will not speak over him. It's more of a discussion. I'll let him finish speaking, then I'll talk. It's not going to be something to where it was like Retro Death, where I talk over him. I'm simply going to let him talk. I've done these before with no moderator. I know next time I said I'd have one, but going over a lot of his tweets and stuff, like he kind of like flip-flops, or he kind of says like one thing and then like he'll agree, then he'll disagree, then he'll agree, then he'll disagree. So it's kind of tough to kind of gauge where this is going to go. But I thought it would be good because we got some new information, kind of what's been going on. Yeah, I'll be doing PE Arena tonight. The PE Arena will be going down around 4 o'clock. So yeah, I'll still be doing PE Arena tonight. I said I was going to bring you guys more live streams this week because I can't live stream next week. So this is part of that. You guys are getting a live stream today. Hopefully I can live stream tomorrow as well, but I won't be able to live stream Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or all of next week until Saturday. Maybe Saturday night I can stream. So I won't be able to stream Monday through Friday, but I'll probably stream like a lot, like on Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, we will be having a PE Arena, Sean Sweeney. So yeah, oh, you still can't play online. That's cool. So yeah, he hasn't showed up yet. So it looks like he's a no-show, to be honest, because now he's 4 minutes late, and I already told him that I'm on a tight schedule today. In terms of editing, I already sent him the links. I told him that I'd send him the links through Twitter. So maybe he's running a little bit late. What we were going to discuss on this debate or this discussion, we had a couple different things. We're going to discuss how developers decide to support systems. We are going to discuss Fast RMX, because for some reason he's saying that is a second-party title. That's definitely not a second-party title. Okay, he's good. Okay, he tells me that he's going to join right now. Okay, he's just sent me a message on Twitter saying that he's going to join right now. So cool. So he's joining up. Then we'll get started. So yeah, this one's going to be much more chill, guys. Definitely not going to be interrupting and all that. Can't wait 10 minutes. Yeah, it's the same guy. It's the same guy. FuriousRantz. But he says that he's joining up right now, and he just sent me a message on Twitter saying that he's joining up. Don't like the fact that he's over 6 minutes late at this point. Really don't like that, because I want to kind of get this started and done with, but okay. Fast RMX is definitely not a second. It's definitely not a second party title. It's definitely not a second party title. It's not even uses it. It's only second party if there's some type of stake Nintendo has in it, if it's some type of financial investment agreement or deal. That's the only way that it's second party. An indie title is a third party title. If an indie developer self-publishes on a system, that's a third party title. That's not a second party or a first party title. Just because a game is exclusive doesn't mean it's a second party title. For example, Devil May Cry came out on the original PS2. That was not that was not a second-party title. Devil May Cry was just a third-party exclusive for the PS2. We've seen this before. There's lots of Blaster Master Zero. That's a third-party title. Just because it's on Nintendo Switch and 3DS and it's not on other systems, that doesn't mean it's a second-party title. It's a third-party game. It's just exclusive to the Nintendo Switch and the 3DS. Nintendo didn't fund Skyrim. Nintendo is publishing Skyrim. Nintendo didn't fund the game. They are publishing it. He says that he's having trouble getting in. It's giving you a 404. All right. I don't know why it's giving you that. Let's see if we can get you in this way, buddy. Copy. All right. Try this link, dude. Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles is a first-party title because Nintendo owns and funds and publishes Xenoblade Chronicles, so therefore it's a first-party title. Snipper Clips is definitely more of a second-party title than anything because Snipper Clips was a joint development between Nintendo and the third-party developer. So therefore, that is more of a second-party title than anything. But the main thing to really know with like first-party versus second-party versus third-party is that second-party isn't necessarily a real thing. Yes, Nintendo owns Monolith Soft, so therefore it's a first-party title. Yes, Nintendo owns Monolith Soft. Yeah, they bought Monolith Soft a while ago. Okay, we've got people coming in that probably shouldn't be coming in to the... I don't know, is this guy a troll? Because we've got people coming in and leaving on a private link that I sent to him. So this guy might be a troll. We had a guy called... Okay, are you in here now? Hey, you there, buddy? Hey, you there? Just type one. Why do you have so much background noise, dude? My mic, for some reason, has trouble unmuting. So you don't have equipment that can even work for a debate?
Never mind, I got it to work.
Okay, you got it to work. Okay, how's it going, man?
It's going all okay. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. We got a lot of people that like to duck and dodge these.
Hey, at least I didn't run away, right?
Yeah, exactly. At least you did not run away. So that's definitely good. I'm on a little bit of a tight schedule today. I've been doing a lot of editing. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it, man.
I'm sorry about the background noise if it's bothering you all.
Oh, no, it's okay. We'll make it through. We'll make it through. So let's talk about a couple different things. There's been some confusion based on like what you've said on Twitter to me. You do a good job of making sure you kind of say things back, which is good. That's what Twitter's for, is for interaction between users and all that. But I wanted to talk to you. You mentioned that that games, like for example, like how developers decide to support systems. Like for example, I think one of the things that you said was like Far Cry, what's the newest one? 5? Far Cry 5. They should already just start.
Far Cry 5.
They should already start putting it on the Nintendo Switch. There shouldn't be any problems. It's been 4 months. So you want to explain your reasoning for, why you said that first?
Well, you see, I want Ubisoft to have a good way to test their Switch audience to make sure they're, are they good with their audience? Are they not? They don't have really a big install base, but you know, it would be a good way to see if Nintendo fans would buy their games or not.
Okay. Okay. It would be a good test. Is that what you're saying? It'd
Yep.
be a good test. So, like, oh, go ahead.
Like a good test, not something that, you know, oh, you put a bad port that came out months later and then you expect it to sell well. No, that's not how you test your audience.
Okay. Is Far Cry 5 finished?
No, not really, but
Okay, and the systems that Far Cry 5 are coming to, they're coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Okay, and the type of game that Far Cry is, it's a big open world RPG, pretty, I wouldn't say cutting edge, but using definitely the latest tech as far as things. Do you think that there could be some issues in terms of developing that type of game that isn't finished, which Far Cry team, they've had issues developing on x86 systems and making sure things run there. Exactly how would they be able to get a quality port out at the same time running on an ARM CPU with, I wouldn't say half the resources, but definitely less resources, and make sure that it's quality and get everything day and date? Can you, how would that be possible?
well, wouldn't it take a year to port games to the Switch?
And when you port a game, is the game finished?
No, it's not finished. Why do you say that?
Because you're saying, oh, well, it would take a year, but usually with ports, usually the game is finished, the code is done, so therefore you can take whatever's done and then you can port it over to the system because the game is done. Far Cry is not done; they're still working on it. Yet you're saying that, oh, would it only take a year to port an unfinished game?
Yeah, but couldn't they start now? Like couldn't they get a team or something to port it over?
Probably not, based on budgets. When developers think about making games, especially big games, they have a certain budget in mind and they want to stick to that budget. Now, they could get another team to port it over, but how quality would the port be? You have your main guys trying to make sure that this game, which isn't going to run perfect on PS4 and Xbox One, let's just be honest here. You have your main guys working on this, so you're going to get a secondary or a third team to work on that. How well is that going to go over for Nintendo Switch fans when you don't have the main team working on trying to get a quality port out? How well do you think that's going to go over?
Well, so you mean like a second or third team working on a port?
Yeah, usually the best way, I mean, if you want to get a quality port, I mean, obviously the best thing for what Nintendo would like is if you had developers who made games like with their best teams and not handing it off, although that doesn't always happen. But if you're looking at a game like Far Cry, what they're trying to do with that game, how big it is to say a game that's unfinished, hey, just get some team, get them to port it when they're not even done. So there'd have to be continuous communication between the port studio or whoever's doing it and this. It wouldn't be the original work. So they'd be new to actually having to get the information, get the game, and port it over. That would be a very difficult thing for them to do on an unfinished game, on a system that's weaker, and get it day and date and make sure that it runs efficiently or good. You're essentially asking for a Wii U situation, because that's what third-party developers
didn't they get it? Well, didn't they get it figured it out for the PS3? You know, had the cell architecture, while the other platforms had PowerPC. You know, that we still got ports.
Did you remember the quality of the PS3 ports back then?
Not really. How were they?
They weren't very good. Skyrim was not very. Skyrim wasn't even good on the Skyrim wasn't good on the PS3, and that was years after Oblivion came out. Oblivion ran horrible on the PS3. It was not a great port. And the PS3 had the power. It was just different architecture. They were obviously still adjusting to it. But even Skyrim on the PS3 ran pretty bad compared to the Xbox 360 because of
certain. Hold on. Didn't you say before that power is not quote unquote everything?
No, definitely. Architecture is one of those things. Architecture is definitely part of the whole thing.
Like, you're acting like it doesn't matter. It's okay if a system is not powerful enough.
I never said that. I never said that it's okay if a system isn't powerful enough. If you looked at my past two videos that I talked about in terms of third-party support, back in January. Actually, one of them was in January, and I think another one.
Remember when there were leaks and rumors saying, "Oh, the Switch is gonna have a Tegra X1"? You're like, "Oh, it's fine. Nintendo has the APIs and the ease of development, all that." How did that go?
Yeah, because some of this stuff
it did make porting more difficult, right?
I didn't say it made porting more difficult. It actually makes porting easier because the Tegra architecture.
Sorry, my bad. Not porting, optimization.
Yes, optimization and porting is easier on the Nintendo Switch, but that doesn't mean that every single game can just come over with no problem at all. And that's why that was before, when I learned more information, talking to more third-party developers.
I wouldn't really say optimization's easier on this Switch, because on the PS4 and Xbox One, you just port the game, have it on similar settings.
No, I meant that it's easier than Wii U. Porting and optimization is easier than Wii U. Not that it's the same as PS4 and Xbox One. I never claimed that. What I was trying to say is that I had more information come, and that's why in January I was saying, okay, well, don't expect all of these big games that have been in development for years to come over. Expect more of the smaller titles.
I didn't expect all of them. I just expected some of them, at least have one of them.
I don't know, like FIFA? Is that coming over?
Okay, good. We got FIFA.
And NBA. Okay. And Rocket League is coming.
Where's the crew?
The crew? What? That racing game?
Yep.
Okay, so who makes the crew? That Ubisoft that makes the crew. Ubisoft, as far as their games go, it's not a charity. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of fans, they don't understand. It's not, these developers don't make games just because, oh, here's a game for you, have fun. They make games because they want to make money. It's not a charity, it's a business. So when you're saying, oh, well, where's this? Look at the Wii U when developers were porting over all of their games, and look at all the bad sales. You can talk about the quality all you want to, but even the good quality ports had bad sales. Need for Speed.
Yeah, but the quality and the release dates are not the only problems. The problem was Nintendo didn't market the game. There was no selling point. Just no one knew pretty much no one knew that these games were in the Wii U. I wouldn't say that's the biggest issue, because the problem with that is that some of the games were marketed. Nintendo did show the game. I mean, yes, it was on the Wii U. That was definitely not good, because I didn't see any commercials of Black Ops 2. I didn't see any commercials of FIFA. Were there any?
You need commercials. They say that it's coming on all the platforms. Nintendo fans, look at the internet. They didn't buy these games.
Just Nintendo fans. You gotta appeal to everyone. When you have a system, there are two groups of people. You have fans, and you have the general consumer. You can't just rely on the Nintendo fans with everything. That just doesn't work.
PlayStation fans and Microsoft fans, they're not going to buy a Wii U to play this version of the game because it's Wii U. They're going to play it they're going to play it with their friends on PlayStation and Xbox. Like, if you've been playing Call of Duty on the Xbox since Call of Duty Modern Warfare, why are you going to rush out and buy a Wii U to play the same exact game that you can already play with all of your friends on Xbox? That makes absolutely no sense. And that's what people did. A lot of Xbox and PlayStation fans, they cried, Nintendo doesn't have third-party support. I want this, this, and this. And then when the Wii U came out with all the third-party support, why am I going to buy a $350 Wii U? I can already play this game on my Xbox.
Your voice is kind of like right now.
Oh, no, I'm just saying. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Listen, they can't.
Can you hear me? Okay, I don't know if you can hear me, dude.
Listen, they can't look, and the Sony and Microsoft fans aren't the only target audience there. There are lots of people out there who didn't have a console. I mean, sure, there was 160 million install base when you combine Xbox 360 and PS3, but that doesn't mean there weren't people out there who wanted to buy the Wii U, but they didn't know there were any, third parties. There aren't any the ones that they wanted, so they didn't buy a Wii U.
what the ones that they wanted, they had literally every single AAA game that you're saying should have been ported to the Nintendo
Need
Switch
for
in
Speed
year one.
Most Wanted did not come out until like what, March? Like
Because
6 months after the other versions?
they took time to make sure that it ran well. You want everything day and date. You want everything to run as perfectly as possible.
Yeah, Nintendo made sure it could be easy to port between the PS3 and Wii U. It had the similar architecture. It had, it was more powerful.
And they made a great port, and people didn't buy it.
It released late.
So then, okay, see, this is where I get kind of like, I scratch my head, because the Wii U is a new system, okay? They were working on that game on the PS3 and 360 well before the Wii U even had a dev kit. So what do you expect them to do? You expect them to rush the development onto the Wii U, or do you expect them to make a quality port? Because remember, the game was in development before the Wii U was even a thing. So you're complaining that, oh, well, the game, it came out 6 months afterwards. I think it came out in March. Oh, that's not good. It came out later. But then you also want a quality port. Like with the new system, you can't always have it both ways, to where you get everything the same day and then you also get quality. You can get a rushed port, okay, and then you can complain about it being rushed and not good, or you can get a developer with a new system that takes their time and ports a quality game, and they expect sales. We've seen this on PS4 and Xbox One. Every game that came out on the PS3 and Xbox 360 didn't launch day and date with the PS4 and Xbox One in 2013. Those ports came out later. Those ports still sold. So I don't think it's an excuse that we should use that, oh, well, it came out later, so therefore it should flop. Because if you look at the sales, the game sold less than 300,000 copies on the Nintendo Wii U. So you're trying to tell me, so since it came out a little bit later, it should flop completely? That's not gonna entice developers to make quality content on the Switch if they know that, man, if we take a little bit of time to make a better port, nobody's gonna buy the game. That's not good. Do you see what I'm saying? I just hear like some tape or something. I think he froze. Yeah, I think he froze. Did he leave? He gave up? The Tegra chip doesn't just barely beat last gen. It beats it by a good amount as far as the Nintendo Switch. But yeah. So yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he left or he froze. I think his internet connection is probably not very good. The reality was too much. Bodied rage quit. Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway, to go on his point a little bit, see, that's what I'm saying, guys. Like this is the argument that people put up. They say, okay, give us quality ports with the brand new system. Give us what we want. Developer says, okay, we're not going to rush a point out there. Okay, Furious Vlogger. Okay, how many Furiouses do we have? FuriousRantz16, Furious Vlogger, FuriousRantz. Anyway, this is what happens with these ports, guys. It's like you want a quality port, and then when they give you one, they say, oh, well, it's late. It's a new system. That's going to happen. You can't have it every single way, especially with the new system. It's going to take a little bit of time, or you can have them rush the port. You want a rush port? That's fine. The Wii U got multiple rush ports. It got Assassin's Creed. It got, I wouldn't call Call of Duty a rush port, but it got Call of Duty. I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't necessarily optimized the most in the single player campaign, but the multiplayer ran great. You got multiple ports on the system, and all of those ports didn't sell. Like, you can't have that. That's the one thing that you can't have. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there was third-party developers that did dumb things. Trust me, guys. I'm not trying to sit here and coon it up for third-party developers or anything like that, or sell it out or whatever the case is. I'm just saying that when you have these developers who are planning games for multiple years, for them to drop what they're doing and get a Nintendo Switch version just out of
Well,
nowhere.
I'm sorry about that because my internet was kind of lagging there and I couldn't hear you. So what were you saying?
Well, we were in the middle of talking about the port for Need for Speed and how you can't have it both ways with the new system. You can have it launch day and date, right, with the other versions, and it potentially be gift because it's a new system, or you can have them work on a good port because the game is finished, have them work on a port, then get it later. The game can't completely flop because the developers took time to make a good port. Like the game can't flop because of that. And if the game does flop, if the developers take time to make a good port, don't expect them to put the next game on your system because their last game flopped. You see what I'm saying?
Well, what makes the Wii U so hard to port to compare the other platforms, the PS3 and Xbox 360?
I never said that it was so hard to port to. It's just that
not that it's hard to port to. You know, it takes time to port to. What makes it different from the other platforms?
The architecture. It's using PowerPC compared to the PS3 and Xbox 360. Xbox 360 is the easiest to port from PC because all these games are being ported over from PC. PS3 would probably be the worst, but the difference is that PS3 had been out since 2006, so developers had already had their engines optimized and probably the best they can get it for. Now with the Wii U, you have a different processor. Obviously, it's not as fast as the processors that are in the PS3 and Xbox 360, but the GPU was much beefier. And you had to kind of like write on there. It's I think it's a GPU, GU or whatever. It's like a combine like with the processor and the GPU, GPU. And you have to learn how to write on there and kind of offload some of the tasks from the CPU onto the GPU. So it's a little bit different than what the developers were experiencing on the PS3 and 360. So definitely some ports didn't work out well since they didn't take the time to optimize. You know, if they took a little bit more time to optimize, then you probably get a better port. You know, what we saw in 2013, 2014 is that we saw some ports get better in terms of optimizing, being closer to what the PS3 and Xbox 360 were. But you still got a lot of ports that were kind of just sloppily, you know, ported over. But the issue that I have is that the developers take the time to make a great port and it still flops and people complain, oh, it didn't come out at the same time. And then when they have a game that comes out at the same time, they say, oh, well, this version sucks, you know, on a new platform, on a system that came out in 2012. You know, that's my issue. It's like, okay, well, no. You can't have it both ways with a brand new platform. Okay. Like you can have, I mean, some ports ran great, you know, which is good, but like I said, it doesn't matter whether the port was good or not. The game still flopped. You can have great ports that launch day and date. Splinter Cell, pretty good port. I think there was like one missing mode. Launch day and date. You can play off TV play. You can have free online play over the Xbox 360 version. Great port. Absolutely flopped on the Wii U. You know, I have the game. I have a lot of ports. I have quite a number. I mean, and even if you don't want to buy them at 60, people weren't buying them at 20. People weren't buying them at 15. People weren't buying them at all. So it wasn't even about money or the price. You know, people just weren't buying ports, period. And I know that he's left, guys. I'm just finishing out my point here. And you know, Purple Dollar Barrel, I'll take some Purple Baller Deluxe. He says, why do they never report issues porting from PS4 to Xbone? Actually, they do report issues porting over. There's actually quite a bit of issues that happen from porting from PC to sometimes to consoles. But as the consoles, they are so like PC. They're running x86. A lot of the architecture is just like PC. Heck, the Xbox One is running an operating system of Windows. It is running Windows with DirectX. It has tools very similar to PC. So if you're having issues with porting, it's not necessarily you're having issues with porting, but you're having issues with the game in general. Like optimizing, or your talent might not be there as well. But developers sometimes do have issues porting over to PC and Xbox One because of the power gap that you can have at the highest level of CPUs and GPUs. Sometimes developers have problems porting to PC or having a game run efficiently on PC because they're so used to the one size fits all PS4 and Xbox One. So it really goes both ways. But anyone who's expecting an ARM architecture CPU that is, like I said, it has some similarities to PC, definitely easier to port over. Anybody who's expecting that to all of a sudden just get all of these PS4 and Xbox One ports, these big, huge games that are just massive file sizes, and the developers don't want to optimize. They don't want to cut their code to where you don't have 50 gigabytes of size and all that. Don't expect any of that on the Switch. Nintendo knew good and well that they weren't going to get everything like that. They made a system that's going to appeal to Japan first, and they're going to blow it out with first-party software. They're going to blow it out with indie developers, and they're going to hope that other developers see the success, just like the Wii, and latch on. The Wii did not have great support. It had some third-party support, but it didn't start getting floods of games until developers saw the success. And a lot of the games that came to the Wii were customized or optimized or just recycled from the PS2 engines over to the Nintendo Wii. And for as much crap as the Wii gets, the Wii got a high number of great games. So I can see a similar thing happen with the Nintendo Switch. Got a little bit of an echo, dude.
Wait, what echo?
Okay, there was a little bit of an echo there. I guess it's gone there. All right, man. How's your internet connection, bro?
Man, it's always weird at night.
Okay, I see. Okay. Well, what did you last hear?
Well, you said that, the CPU is much weaker. I think you said that, right?
With the Wii U, the CPU is much slower.
But
so I was explaining. Well, go ahead.
But they still managed to get it work the same as the other platforms. The exact same port, actually better than other platforms. The lighting was better. The textures were better. Mm-hmm. Even though the CPU was...
yeah, even though the CPU was a little bit slower. What you saw, some of those games that the frame rates weren't necessarily as high or ran as consistent as the PS3.
Frame rate. The frame rate with Need for Speed was higher on the Wii U than the PS3 and Xbox 360 version, and it looked better.
Oh, I know, because they optimize it. I'm just saying in general, some of the broader games out there, like for example, like Splinter Cell or like Assassin's Creed, sometimes the frame rates would be below the PS3 and 360. But yes, and this is what makes Need for Speed even more sad, is that they made a great port for Need for Speed and people didn't support it. You know what I'm saying? And people didn't buy the game. And I don't want to hear about price. I don't want to hear about anything, because the game was discounted. The game was discounted a couple months after it came out. The game was discounted as low as, I think, $20 at one point in the same calendar year.
A couple of months after the game. You mean after the PS3 version or after the Wii U version?
No, I'm saying the Wii U version. It was discounted. People didn't buy the game when it was cheap. People didn't buy the game at full price. People didn't buy the game at all.
So it wasn't full price at launch.
It was full price at launch.
Well, yeah, full price at launch.
But they didn't buy the game when it was discounted either. That's my problem. I bought the game when it was discounted. You know?
That's it, because the game is irrelevant. No, people moved on. The next Need for Speed was coming out. No one's gonna, wait for the Wii U version.
That's a ridiculous notion to take when people are asking for ports.
Like you said earlier. They're not gonna play it because it's Wii U. They're gonna wanna play it as soon as possible and cheapest, while being, the same, I guess.
Nintendo fans didn't buy the game. Not everyone bought the game on PS4, PS3, and 360. Not everyone bought the game. It wasn't like a super massive seller. I mean, it sold great, but it wasn't like oh my gosh, everyone. It wasn't Grand Theft Auto. I mean,
it still sold like 1 million or 2 million copies.
I know, but
that was much more than the Wii U version. The Wii U version sold like 200,000.
Which is sad. More people should have bought the Wii U version if they want great third-party support. If that game would have done well, and if other quality ports like Splinter Cell and Call of Duty, if those games would have done well, we probably would have got developers taking more of a chance on the Nintendo Switch. But the problem is that when you're planning games, the Nintendo Switch didn't get development kits till 2016. When developers are planning games, they look at their sales in their previous Nintendo system and they're like, yeah, this didn't sell. Why are we going to plan to make a game on this system? We don't know how well it's going to sell. Now that the Switch is out and it's selling, okay, now you can probably see some developers say, okay, let's see what we can plan for this system. But many developers after the Wii U, they looked at themselves and said, we're not going to do this. And then also, this was a plan with Nintendo. Nintendo's like, well, we know you guys want install base. We know
okay.
Let us get our first party games.
Okay, look, the GameCube was a failure. And guess what? We still had Call of Duty, Cars, Madden, Tony Hawk, Marvel at launch. We still had those games, right? Yeah.
And I'll tell you the reason why GameCube was definitely an interesting situation, because GameCube, that was a system that was very easy to port to, like easier than the PS2 to actually get games. So a lot of developers, even though GameCube was technically stronger than PS2, things better than Xbox. Okay, getting kind of loud there, but GameCube got these games because it was easy to port, but sometimes the GameCube version was the worst version as far as running and how it looked, because developers sometimes they knew that their games wouldn't sell on GameCube as much, so they would just port it over quickly, and even after the PS2 and Xbox versions, and they would focus on those ones. So sometimes you even saw performance underneath the PS2, even though the GameCube performance should never be under PS2, but sometimes you did see that. But that's the reason why GameCube got a great support, because of just how easy it was to port to. And it was on par, if not better, than the other systems. Now, if Nintendo were to make a system that was on par or better than what the systems were and were as easy to port games as the GameCube, they would definitely get a little bit more. They would definitely get more support, because developers would probably just rush out a port on there and would perform enough. But just like the GameCube, it probably wouldn't sell, because a lot of games on the GameCube, third-party games, didn't sell. So I mean, they can do the same thing, but you're not going to get any sales. So when you're looking at it in today's age, especially with the HD era, games development has gone up since then. So you're not going to take those same chances that you took before, because HD development is definitely significantly higher than 480p development. So that's the reason why GameCube was a little bit different. But if Nintendo ever made a real GameCube 2 and it was like PS4 Pro level or 3 teraflops, and it was like pretty much like a PS4, or it was like an x86 console, would they get more support? Absolutely. Absolutely. No questions asked, they would get more support, because developers could just crap out a port really easy like they did on the GameCube, you know? So that's really what it comes down to. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say, add to that, or any other type of counter, or did you want to move on to the next topic?
Okay. Yep. GameCube is easy to port to and all that, but weren't there some games? I think there were some games that were only on the PS3 and Xbox 360 and ported to the Wii. Isn't that right?
Yeah, developers did start to port games to the Wii because the Wii sold, and that's what I was trying to say. Like, you know, you were saying online, like, oh well, developers should just start doing it now so they can get the PS4 and Xbox One crowd. The PS4 and Xbox One crowd,
and it's not just that it couldn't run it and all, and the controller was so much different on the Wii. So they had to like change the control, and then there's a UI button and stuff, and
but they did it.
They had to do motion controls. It's just not as easy.
They didn't have to. The thing with the Wii is that the Wii got ports simply because it sold. Developers put together small teams.
Yeah, but how can you sell 20 million consoles at launch? So you're telling me that they ported games at launch because of the install base?
No, they ported games at launch because of the engine that it ran on. It was essentially a GameCube. All they did was take their PS2 versions and put it over on the Wii. It was very simple. It wasn't very hard for them to make Wii games, even at launch. The GameCube was there. They already knew about GameCube development. A lot of those games were also on PS2 and Xbox. Like a lot of the launch games that came out on the Wii, those were on PS2 and Xbox as well. So all they did was take their GameCube game and put it on the Wii. It was essentially a GameCube, a little bit stronger than a GameCube. That's all they did. It wasn't hard for them at all. Had nothing to do with the install base. It was just convenience. If Nintendo, like I said, if Nintendo made x86 PS4, so the Nintendo PS4 Plus, developers would be like, great, Let's put a game on there. I mean, will it sell? Will this system sell to Nintendo's fan base? Will it sell in Japan? Probably not, because it's a clone.
Did FIFA 14 come to the Wii U? I mean, it was easy to port games like FIFA to the Wii U. It's the same architecture. FIFA is not CPU intensive.
FIFA 13.
Did it get FIFA? Did it get FIFA 14? Did it get all the other games that came out on PS3?
It got FIFA.
Like,
the Wii U.
No,
got
like
FIFA.
no. Like in 2014 and 2015, did they get any ports then?
No, because EA decided to stop supporting the Wii U.
Well, it was easy to port to, right, from the PS3 to Wii U. If it's a game is not CPU intensive.
Easy. I wouldn't say that it was easy. I don't develop games on there. I wouldn't say that it was easy. I would say that it takes work if you want to get a quality port. It takes work because hold up. The port that came to the FIFA, like the FIFA port on the Wii U, was bad. It wasn't good. They rushed it out, so they never took their time to port the game. It wasn't a good port. Now the FIFA port that's coming to the Switch is a good port because they made a custom engine for the Switch itself. They didn't do that. All they did was recycle a 360 engine and then put it on the Wii U, and nobody bought it. And then they said, okay, well, we're not supporting the Wii U anymore. EA kind of sabotaged themselves. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think EA is a good example to use. Maybe you want to use someone else.
How about Ubisoft? They still brought games on last-gen platforms. They brought some games. I think The Crew came out on Xbox 360. Yeah, it did.
Okay. And they didn't.
Why didn't that?
When did The Crew launch? The Crew launched in 2015 or 2014? Which one? Do you remember?
2014. 2014.
Okay. And Ubisoft was already. What did Ubisoft say about their game sales? Do you remember?
No, yes, they did say they don't want to support it until the sales improve. Okay. I mean, even if we're using that logic, there was still Smash Bros coming out. There was still a bunch of other games coming out to boost the system. But so they could have just
multiple.
So they knew there was going to be a much better install base.
Did they? Because the system sales never got better. And The Crew had already been in development for quite some time. That is a DMR online only game.
There were some increases there and there. You know, I'm not saying it sold really well. It's a Wii 2.0, but it did get some increases there and there where, you know, the install base is, I guess, enough.
And how was the port for The Crew on 360? Was it any good?
I don't know. Was it?
Okay, so you're saying why didn't they do it? And what if it was a crappy port? Would that have done well on the Wii U?
But it's still.
Was it worth the time and effort to port it over to the Wii U? I'm just asking a question.
What time?
Was it worth the time and effort? Yeah, was it worth the time and effort to port it over?
It was pretty much 360 hardware with a weaker CPU.
Okay, but you still have to port the game over. It's not, you don't snap your fingers, then all of a sudden a port appears in front of you like a wild Pokemon. It's not, you don't walk around in tall grass and then all of a sudden a port comes out of nowhere with a few developers. I mean, it takes time, it takes resources, it takes a little bit of money. I mean, and it's a business.
Yes, I know it takes time, but all these games on the Xbox 360 and PS3 could have run on the Wii U.
Okay. And Wii U sales weren't very good. Third-party sales on those systems weren't very good. I don't see why Ubisoft would take the time to port it over, especially if the 360 version wasn't very good.
What did they expect? Like, you get a bad port in there or something old. They actually expected it to sell well?
The Crew sold the Crew sold 230,000 copies on the Xbox 360. I'm pretty sure it was a bad port. So if Ubisoft already knew the game wasn't very good, why are they going to spend the money on something that they know probably won't sell?
Okay, what about Activision? Why didn't they get Call of Duty Advanced Warfare on the Switch? I mean, Wii U, my bad.
Because the Call of Duty games didn't sell on the Wii U. 2 years in a row, the games didn't sell. And they launched day and date and were competent ports. They weren't the best in the world, but they were competent.
Well, here's it. If you had it like at this pretty much the same as other platforms and marketed the game, maybe it would have sold at least 1 million copies. Like, look at Call of Duty 3 on the Wii. That had a selling point, you know, it had motion controls. It was a big thing at the time, so it ended up selling 2 million copies.
On the Wii?
Yup, 2 million.
Call of Duty sold on the Wii because the install base was massive.
No, the install base was like 3 million at the time.
No, Call of Duty. Which Call of Duty are you talking about?
Call of Duty 3, the one that launched with the Wii.
Okay, and it didn't sell 2 million copies on day one. It didn't sell 2 million copies that calendar year. It sold 2 million copies if it did. I'm trying to look at the Call of Duty because of how big the install base was. It didn't sell all 2 million in that calendar year. It took time, and it took an install base to sell that. I mean, I'm looking at the Call of Duty games that came to the Wii. Let's see here. Call of Duty 3. Yeah, Call of Duty 3 sold 2.24, but it definitely didn't sell 2.24 in that calendar year. It probably sold that much because the time. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, then let's go to June 2007. Nintendo revealed that the Wii sold 5 million units, around 5 million units, or 6 million. I think it was 5 or 6 million.
2007.
Yep, 2007, like mid 2007.
Yeah, I think the Wii definitely sold more than that at that point, from launch all the way till mid 2007.
No, I'm pretty sure it was sold like 6 million or 5 million. Because last time I checked, that was the number. I
think it sold more than that mid 2007. The Wii.
2007 was the first year of the Wii, like, you know, from November.
2006. It came out and launched in 2006. It had it had an amazing launch.
No, I don't mean like all of 2007. Like most of it was the first year.
Okay, and what I'm telling you is that Call of Duty and all of the Call of Duty games on the Wii, those did well because of the popularity, the install base, the growing install base of the Wii is what made those games sell. More people picked up the game as it went on. More people picked up the other games as time goes on. The Call of Duty games didn't sell as fast as like the PS3 or Xbox 360 Call of Duty. Definitely didn't sell as fast as that. Those third-party games almost never sell as fast as that on Nintendo systems. People bought it because there was a lot of people that were interested in the Wii. That's the reason why people bought it, because the system was a hot system. It was out there. And like I said, it was a GameCube. This is essentially a GameCube game. Activision ported this over for nothing. Not the same thing from PS3, 360 over to the Nintendo Wii U. You can't just take your engine, port it over, and expect people to be happy with the quality of the port. Essentially, Call of Duty on the Wii was the perfect version of Call of Duty on the GameCube. But you have motion controls this time. It didn't run worse than, I mean, it wasn't as good as the PS3 and 360, obviously, but people knew that. But it ran exactly like it did on the previous systems. Whereas with the Call of Duties on the Wii U, those necessarily they weren't optimized. They weren't necessarily as great. Like I said, the single player, but the multiplayer was still good. But overall, I still think it should have sold. But comparing Call of Duty on the Wii and saying, oh, well, they should do the same thing.
Wait, about optimization, you're talking about Black Ops 2, right?
Yeah, Black Ops 2, Call of Duty Ghosts, those two came to the Wii U, and those didn't sell. Those weren't optimized as well as they could have been.
Yeah. You see, people, unless there's like a selling point, a uniqueness from the hardware, people aren't gonna buy the Wii U version of the game. But you see, the Switch has portability. Even if the game is a little bit watered down, I guess, people might still buy it because you can play it on the go.
Oh, I agree. I definitely agree. But it's not, but like you're comparing systems and stuff to stuff that was already out there, that they just reused engines and that it's easier. The price of development was not quite as high. We're talking about in 2006, HD systems were here. You know what I'm saying? Like they were already here. That was expensive. Nintendo put out a system that was 480p and could reuse the GameCube. You know what I'm saying? Reuse GameCube assets. They did. All they did was make it to where it was motion control, and the motion controls weren't even that great in Call of Duty 3. They got better as time went along, but from what I recall, Call of Duty on the Wii U, they had some pretty unique features too. You had off-TV play, and you could use motion controls, if I'm not correct. You can use the Wii Remote and Nunchuck on Call of Duty for aiming and all of that, and it still didn't sell. So
and they didn't advertise it. I've seen no commercials saying, "Oh, you've got to TV."
You've got to advertise.
Second of all, second of all, the PS3 also had off-TV play. You know, you could use a PS Vita off TV, and I think you could use a PSP, though I could be wrong.
Yeah, but you need a second device for that. This was it packed in. So yeah,
but do you know how big the install base was for the PSP?
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't really see. Here's the problem that I have, like with your point. It's like you're saying, oh well, the Wii is unique. You can do this. Well, there was unique features in the box, or you can reuse your Wii remotes. You don't have to buy extra things like a PS Vita or that or remote play, any of that, which doesn't even work as well as Nintendo's, by the way.
Technically, you did pay extra for the Wii U gamepad. If anything, that's what made it $350. Would have been $250, but.
It was all
would have been $250, but the gamepad, you know, upped it up a lot.
And the packing of
paying for a second device.
Okay, but you're getting into a whole nother thing. The whole point is that everything was in the box that you needed to do that. You didn't have to go out and buy something separately. And not only that, but it worked better than what Sony was doing, which was showing off. It easily worked better than remote play. On top of that, like I said, there was unique stuff in there with the motion controls. You could use motion on Call of Duty, and Nintendo did advertise it.
Yeah,
Nintendo,
but at the time, motion controls was dead. That's it. It's done. Like motion controls was big back in 2006, 2007.
So
that was 2012.
So what you're saying is that, oh, it needs something unique. Nintendo and Call of Duty, they put in all the unique stuff that they can, and it didn't have anything unique enough for it to sell?
Yes, that's enticing, like, you know, the Switch's portability.
Well, then that's the problem, is that the Switch wasn't out at the same time. We're talking about sales of games back in 2012. If developers have to put some type of crazy gimmick or something in for their game to sell, that's not a good look on the Nintendo fan base. If Nintendo fans are saying, we're not buying this because there's not some type of crazy motion control gimmick, motion control is dead. Off TV play, I can do that on my PS Vita. If Nintendo fans aren't buying a game because of that, then there's a problem. Because that's what you're essentially saying.
It does look like I'm saying it needs that, but I'm not trying to say that you either make a port good or you have some selling point that'll make people buy the game on that instead. You either do that or do that.
Why can't free online play and off TV play and motion controls? Why can't all of that?
Didn't the PS3 have free online, and it had a much better infrastructure, and it was free?
But it was still, Call of Duty's infrastructure was still good on the Wii U. You had voice chat built in, you had messages, you had everything that you can do right there in the game. It wasn't bad.
You can't use you know, voice chat with your Wii U Pro controller. It's pretty much the same situation as the Switch. You gotta connect it to another device and put it next to you.
But the whole point of the system, people weren't complaining about that. If you're talking about a Pro controller, you are making up every single possible reason for people not to go out there and buy this game, dude. Like you're saying, oh, well, there's not anything unique or gimmicky enough that's unique or different from the other versions. Oh, well, the online wasn't good enough because the other systems have better online. Well, even though the online was good, that doesn't matter, dude. Every system has their advantages and disadvantages. For you to say that it's okay for the game to flop because of these, that's ridiculous. People should buy the game because it's a good game, not because there's some type of crazy gimmick or some type of stupid thing that they've added in there to entice Nintendo fans more so over than anything. That's
not saying that, oh, they need a crazy gimmick or whatever, but it does look like I'm trying to say that, but it's not. What I'm trying to say is that you either have a good port, or if you're gonna put out a good port, but it's missing out on some features and the frame rate is lower in single player, have something that's, you know, unique that'll make it people buy the game on that instead.
I personally feel that multiple play styles, motion controls, free online, off TV play, everything right then and there, I think that's unique enough for the system, for the game to sell, in my opinion. I bought Call of Duty. I didn't buy Call of Duty on the Xbox 360.
No, unique in a like a way in the Wii and the Switch were doing, you know?
You're
They
asking
had
them to make some type of gimmick. You're asking them to make some type of gimmick. You're essentially, are you mad at the system for not being more gimmicky? Like, are you mad at the Wii U for not being even more of a gimmick that it was?
So,
because, like,
so the Switch was a gimmick? So the Switch is a gimmick?
The Switch is a gimmick.
I mean,
it's a playing games on the go. The gimmick of the Switch is that you can play any. Gimmick gets a bad word.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything wrong with that? Is there anything wrong with that?
No, but we're talking about 2012. We're not talking about 2017.
Yeah, it's not. It's not that. Oh, it's before and after, but the. Okay, it's kind of hard to put into words.
It looks like you're trying to justify this game flopping on the Wii U. That's what it looks like you're trying to do. I know you're saying that you're not trying to, but you've made multiple excuses why this game shouldn't sell. You know, and look, I see what you're trying to say. Let me try to help you out here.
Yeah.
I see what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, okay, well, the gimmick or the marketing point of the Switch is much better, so these developers should put their games. And I agree. But Call of Duty, this last Call of Duty has been in development for 3 years. Okay, it's been in development for 3 years.
That doesn't mean it's gonna take 3 years to port over and optimize. Come on.
Never said it would be, but it's been in development for 3 years. It's on system that's weaker. Remember, Call of Duty on the Wii U, that was on par with the PS3 and 360. Okay, it's on a system that's going to be weaker. It's on an ARM CPU. Okay, why? I don't see why anyone would expect this. I mean, it would be great if they had it, but I would like them to take their time. I think Call of Duty is going to come to the Wii U. I just don't think it's going to be day and date. I think there's going to be a Call of Duty on the Wii U one of these days. And the reason why I think that it's going to come to the Wii U one of these days is because they're going to make
Call of Duty better come in 2018 for the Switch.
Sorry, I said Wii U. I meant Switch. When I said I think Call of Duty is going to come to the Switch, I think they're going to make a quality version. I think they might even make a custom engine for the Switch.
Well, I hope so, because you can't have, you know, ports that are not enticing and you expect them to sell well.
Well, yeah, you got to have a quality port. So that's the reason, and that's what kind of comes up with this whole discussion is that you're saying that these ports should already be here. They should be here. But if they were, I can almost guarantee you that they would be crappy ports. Look, man, we got a port of what was it? What's that game? It's like a Space Beetle music rhythm game. I forgot what it's called. Someone in the chat can help me out. Thumper. There we go. We got Thumper. That took them 6 months to port Thumper, and they didn't even do everything that they wanted to do in terms of the graphics. 6 months after they had already finished the PlayStation 4 version to port Thumper, an indie game where you are a beetle in space on a track playing music, to get all the graphical effects and to get a quality port running at 60 frames per second. It took them 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. Isn't 6 months enough to port, you know, Far Cry 5 to the Switch?
No. We're comparing an indie game to a massive open world multiplayer RPG.
Yeah, but it has a much bigger team.
But that's the thing. The team is still working on the Far Cry on there. Could they potentially get a big team to port it over on the Switch? Potentially, but you don't know if the Switch version is going to sell. The install base of the Switch is not big. In the planning phase, these are things that you don't know. So when you're a smart business, you don't make business investments on things that you have no clue of. All right. When they're planning Far Cry, they weren't planning Far Cry like 5 months ago, dude. They were planning Far Cry 4 years ago or 3 years ago. They were planning it a while ago, and the Switch wasn't a thing. So for you to say, oh, well, they can port this over in 6 months and just get another team, I'm sorry. Business doesn't work that way. The game industry doesn't work this way. You just don't know how the game industry works. And
Nintendo has games to sell systems. They have Mario, they have the Splatoon, they have Monster Hunter. They should let developers know start porting your games.
Look. Let me tell you something.
We're gonna grow an install base.
Let me tell you something. That's what they are doing. People like you are ridiculously impatient. That's exactly what they're doing. That's what Nintendo's already planned with third-party developers.
So they're already starting. They're starting to port Far Cry 5.
I didn't say Far Cry 5. You said third-party developers. You didn't particularly just say Far Cry 5.
They're starting to port COD 2018 to it.
third-party developers, you're mentioning singular games in order to try to shift your argument. Listen, you said third-party developers. Nintendo has stated that they already have double the amount from what they already announced, which was 170 games. They said that they already have double the amount at this point. So third-party developers, whether it's indie developers or whether it's bigger ones like Ubisoft porting over Starlink, have started to port over games and will continue as the install base rises, because Nintendo in this year is going to make sure the install base rises. Guys like you are impatient and you can't already see that Nintendo's planned this out because you think plans are executed in the same year that they're announced, which are not. This plan for the Nintendo
because third-party developers are not even showing that they are gonna port games to the system. They're not even showing that. They're like, oh, we have no plans to port that. We're not porting that. We don't want to port that.
Some games that have already been in development, yes, they're not going to plan to port anything because a lot of the games they're still making them and they don't know if it's going to sell and the install base is still low. But will other developers jump on board in 2018? Will other developers jump on board later this year, and will we get announcements? Of course we will. If you think that it's going to be like this, even with the Switch selling as high as it is, that's why I said you don't know the gaming industry, or you can't simply just look at the history of the Wii, where developers, they were porting over some stuff, but it wasn't until the Wii started selling really till developers said, okay, we're going to start making some custom games for it. To where we're going to get stuff like Mirror Moss of the Demon Blade. We're going to get stuff like Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, Dark Side Chronicles. We're going to get stuff like Mushroom Man. We're going to get like all these different custom games that came to the Wii. You know what I'm saying? I think House of the Dead Overkill, stuff like that. There was just a ton of stuff within a small period, within a 2 to 3 year period. The Wii got so many games because of its sales. Nintendo Switch could be like that. Developers are going to start porting over more to like that. But if you expect all the games that have been in development when developers didn't know that the Switch was even going to be a success or not, that have been in development for 3 or 4 years, if you expect them to rush a port in 6 months or to rush a port out and potentially have it be crappy and waste money, you, like I said, don't know the gaming industry. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but didn't you say like it takes 6 months or something? It took 6 months to port Thumper with a small team? You know, a small team?
Yeah, because they felt that...
And there was a game that took 1 week to port this to the Switch, just 1 week.
It didn't take 1 week. It took 1 week to get it up and going. You're talking about Snake Pass. It got it up and going. They still need to optimize. And Snake Pass, once again, an indie game, not a big game. And the development budget for those games...
But it was still demanding, you know. It still was, you know, it took up a lot of resources. I've heard that Digital Foundry said, oh, the physics are, you know, very taxing. The grass was taxing. Like, even on... GTX 980 Ti, it struggles to run at a full 1440p 60 frames per second. It's pretty demanding game.
That's probably optimization too from the developers more than
it's
that's a little bit of optimization. But to get to your point, it didn't take them a week to port it. It took them a week to get it up and running, and that uses Unreal Engine 4. Once again, smaller indie title. The bigger titles, it's not as easy. It's not going to be up and running in a week, and you're still going to have to make optimizations after that. Snake Pass, it's demanding for what it's doing. Yes, you can say that, but the type of content, there's not a ton of dialogue. Obviously, there's not as many areas or locations as a Far Cry. You know what I'm saying? Far Cry is a completely different technical level. You can't compare an indie title like Snake Pass with a 12-person development team to Far Cry with maybe even up to like 1,000 people working on that, or somewhere in the hundreds, multiple. You can't compare those two games. There's no comparison, right? That's why indie developers are putting games out on Switch, because they can do it with small development teams, small budget. Porting over like a Far Cry to the Switch and getting a quality port, that's not going to be a small development team. That's not going to be a small budget. I mean, you can try it, but I'm pretty sure you're going to end up with the Wii U situation, because that's what they did on Wii U. They took these big HD games and they said, let's put a small team on there. Let's port it over. Let's get it out there quick. 6 months, 5 months, whatever the case is. And those games flopped. They didn't run as good. So once again, you're asking for a Wii U situation with the Nintendo Switch by you saying, well, why don't they just get a team together? Why don't they just port it over quickly? Like, it only took this. You're asking for the same situation, dude. You either need to give them time if you want a quality port, or you need to buy a PS4 so you can play those games.
With the Wii U, devs weren't, you know, being smart with it. They were They were just, oh, let's get a small team to port a game with the same architecture. So it's wouldn't really say easy, but it's tolerable, I guess. You can just port it in the UI and all, and then optimize it and work. But they didn't do that. They got a team with like 20 people or 10 people, and then they just ported a gimped version, released it like what, a year later? Look at Watch Dogs on the Wii U. Look at that.
They were having trouble getting the game running good on the system. They took the extra time to make sure it was.
Yeah, but not all of them were CPU intensive. They weren't. Not all of them were that hard to optimize.
Whether the game launched day and date or whether, like, that's why I keep on going back to this. Wii U, whether the ports were good or they're bad, they all flopped. Pretty much all of them flopped for the most part. The best-selling third-party game on the Wii U is, I think, it's Minecraft. That's the best-selling one.
I can't bring up one AAA game that sold well on the Wii U.
Lego City.
Nope, Zombie U. That sold 1 million copies.
Okay, but it sold 1 million copies in about 4 years. It took about 4 years for it to sell 1 million copies, though.
How much did it sell in the start?
Not enough, because Ubisoft wasn't happy. Ubisoft said that we're not happy with these sales. I mean, the only thing that I called them out on was when they said that, oh, well, Just Dance, like Nintendo fans want Just Dance more than stuff like Zombie U. And I'm like, no, that's BS, because Zombie U sold way more than Just Dance on the Wii U. So don't sit here and tell me that Nintendo fans want this more than that when Zombie U did better. But Ubisoft was not happy.
It's not what Nintendo wants. Look, Platinum gave Wii U users Bayonetta 2, and that still didn't reach 1 million copies. And the install base at the time's like what, 6 million, 7 million?
Yeah,
wouldn't that be?
And that's what
wouldn't that be enough for Nintendo fans to buy the game?
And I said that I think it's a shame that Bayonetta didn't sell more than what it was. But once again, this goes back, especially with niche genres and especially with these things. That's why install base is so important, which you were trying to say, no, install base isn't as big of a deal. Yeah, that's pretty much what you've been trying to say. That's what you said on Twitter.
When did I say it's not a big deal? But I said that you should test your audience as well,
That's not how business works. They did a lot of testing on the Wii U and failed. That's not how business works, especially when you're talking about high budget.
They didn't do it right, though. They did a terrible job at doing it.
So then what would doing it right be? Would rushing a port when you got a development kit in 2016 and these games have been in development for 3 years, would rushing a port out, is that doing it right?
So they got the dev kits from 2016, and they had until 2018 to do something or port it.
With many games that aren't finished yet. Usually when a port comes, the game is usually finished, or the hardware is on par to where you can co-development. Like Wii U and PS3 360, hardware is on par. You know what I'm saying? This is not. This is not hardware on par. This is a very different type of system with developing games of budgets that are even going higher than what they were beforehand. You're trying to make comparisons to previous systems and stuff like that, but you still fail to understand.
Look at Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. That wasn't.
Look at it.
I wouldn't really say it's high budget or low budget, but the game doesn't really look that demanding, I should say.
No,
and
it doesn't. It doesn't.
And Switch supports Unreal Engine 4. Why didn't Capcom port that?
Because Capcom's dumb sometimes, and I don't know why Capcom didn't port it over.
Yeah, exactly. That's why
when Capcom.
That's why third parties failed on the Wii U. They were dumb with the system.
And Nintendo fans also didn't buy the games that came out, whether the port was good or not. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that some third parties weren't dumb with the system. But to try to get into the mind of Capcom is a very scary thing to do. So maybe we shouldn't go to the mind of Capcom. Every game that's coming out at this point, Capcom especially, they're not going to just drop what they're doing and make budgets for the Switch. And that's the problem that Switch fans or Nintendo fans, they don't understand. They think that games are just announced out of nowhere. The planning is just announced out of anywhere, and everything should come to Switch because Switch is selling now. These developers, when they were planning their games 2-3 years ago, they didn't know.
That is not true. If that were the case, I'll be like, why didn't Need for Speed Payback come to Switch? Why didn't Call of Duty World War II come to Switch? I know that developers couldn't port the game that, you know,
Retro Death, who I debated on last time, he was asking why didn't Need for Speed come to the Switch? Like, why didn't that? So I mean, and I've seen other people say the same thing. I've seen many people say the same stuff with that. I'm not trying to say that the developers,
at first I was disappointed it didn't come to Switch, but then I thought about it and said, oh, Mario Odyssey's coming around the same time, and they don't have enough time to port it. But yeah, now I realize that it takes a lot of time to port, but they could have still brought some 2018 games to the system.
Well, we'll see if those will get announced after they're done. We'll see if they will. I think we're going to get some surprise announcements. That's the thing. You're basing everything on E3, and which is a problem. You shouldn't do that. Which you shouldn't do that. You're basing everything on E3, which you should never do when it comes to Nintendo.
Because that's the biggest gaming expo of the year.
And
every year, that's the biggest gaming expo.
And does Nintendo treat E3 the same as every other developer and publisher out there? What was announced after E3?
No, but they still have it big.
Okay, but what was announced from Nintendo after E3?
Why didn't they wait to announce Metroid Prime 4? Why did they do it at E3?
I didn't say that. I'm asking you.
No, I know you didn't say it. But
no, I'm asking you, did they announce everything? Did Nintendo announce all of their announcements for 2017 at E3? I'm asking.
Well,
you know?
I guess not. But
no, they did it.
You know
why they did it? You know why they didn't?
Those were like indie games and stuff like that.
How about the Super Nintendo Classic? Was that announced at E3?
That wasn't even a game. That was like just a retro console or something.
It doesn't matter. It's the first time Star Fox 2 is going to be out anywhere. That was a big announcement. People went crazy when that announced. They could have easily announced that at E3 and it be a very big announcement for them. Don't try to downplay that, please.
Besides, they didn't even have time. They were saving for 25 minutes. They were rushing.
Okay. So what about Pikmin? Was Pikmin announced? Did they show off Pikmin at E3?
Well, maybe it's not ready.
Oh,
maybe
but
they gotta.
It's not ready.
Maybe they gotta.
I'm pretty sure Miyamoto announced Pikmin and said that we always have teams working on it. They announced that in 2015. You're trying to tell me they have nothing to show?
Yeah, but they showed the Wii U and the Switch have different architecture, so they gotta bring the game over and then they gotta continue it. I think
that makes no sense with what you're saying. That makes no sense. It makes no sense because they could have put up a title screen and said, "Here's Pikmin 3." They could have showed off a screenshot. They could have showed off something. They didn't show off anything. What I'm trying to get at here is that E3 is not the be all end all for Nintendo, nor is it the be all end all for Nintendo or even third party announcements. We're going to get some more. I'm not trying to say that we're going to get everything. I'm not trying to say third party developers are going to announce everything on there, but don't be surprised because Nintendo has directs, but don't be surprised if we get announcements for games later in the year because Nintendo has directs. Nintendo does other things. Don't be surprised. E3 is not the be all end all for Nintendo. Never will be, never has been, won't be for third party developers when it comes to Nintendo. Won't be the last time.
For the last 2 years, I guess, there weren't that many directs with bombing announcements, I should say. Not that many. There were some probably, but not that many.
Doesn't matter. If there were some, then that means there's more than there was none. So the thing with it, which I've said multiple times, which I'll continue saying, is that this E3 was just this E3. It's not that big or huge thing for Nintendo. They make big announcements after E3. They'll make big announcements in the fall. They'll make big announcements in early 2018. They'll make announcements at any point. I understand the Switch is not the Wii U.
So they announced the game for other platforms, but announced it for Nintendo at the last minute? Why?
They did that with Call of Duty Ghosts. There could be NDAs that are involved. There could be
how did Call of Duty Ghosts sell? And how many people talked about the Wii U version? Did you see anyone online at the time say, "Oh, I'm getting Call of Duty Ghosts on my Wii U"? Besides Nintendo fans, of course.
Nobody said it at all because Nintendo. The sad reality of this, which is what you and a lot of people don't understand, is that most Nintendo fans don't care about these third-party games. That's the reality that a lot of Nintendo fans don't want to face, because then they're like, oh, then we won't get these games if that reality is put out there. But that's the reality. Most Nintendo fans
That's the thing. They can't just target Nintendo fans. They have to target general audience as well.
PS4 and Xbox One dudes are not going to buy a Switch so they can play all the latest third-party games. It's just not going to happen. That's a reality that you need to come to. Maybe the faster that you can deal with that reality, the faster you'll be okay. And these type of debates won't happen.
Of course, these guys are like fans or diehards. They'll always buy their games on their system. But the general audience, they look at the best option. You know, it's last generation. Let's say this is as an example. You know, last generation at the beginning, the Xbox 360 is the best place to go for multiplats. So you got an Xbox 360, but then a generation later, the PS4, you know, turned out to be superior to the Xbox One. They got a PS4. You know, they just look at the best, and they get that.
The best. So the best. The best, if we're talking about Zero here, Super Smash Bros. Player, the best is probably going to be PS4 and Xbox One. You're going to get the best performance on there. You're going to get the best online play on there. You're going to get the best
performance, but are you going to get the best portability?
But do general consumers care about that? We don't know. We don't know.
Yes,
we don't know. We simply don't know. We know Nintendo fans are psyched about that. We know Nintendo, like, to me, the Switch is selling to a lot of 3DS dudes that like first-party content, selling to a lot of Nintendo Wii U dudes that like the first-party content. We don't know if people are third-party developers sure as hell don't know if, hey, we're going to have to scale our game back. We're going to have to make these adjustments for this, for potentially people buying it because of portability in a fan base that we know have not bought the games beforehand. It just, I mean, and then you also have to look at the third-party influence as far as dollars go. Microsoft and Sony pay these third-party developers for marketing and things like that, whereas Nintendo doesn't. There's all sorts of stuff that's not being factored in here.
That's a problem. Nintendo isn't, you know, letting people know that you can play multiplats on their system.
No,
like,
they did.
Tell people,
they did.
Did they with the Wii U?
Of course.
I mean, they did. They are doing with the Switch. That's why there's a lot of people saying, "Hey, I can't wait to play Skyrim on the go."
They did with the Wii U. They did that with the Wii U. At the Wii U, at the press conference E3 2013.
Press conference. There were no commercials in TV. There were no commercials in YouTube. Nowhere. Just the conferences.
But you just talked about how big E3 was and how everything is all about E3. Nintendo shows off these games at E3. Now you're saying, "Oh, well, commercials." You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, dude. Like, you just talked about how big E3 was for Nintendo and how big E3 is supposed to be, and that third-party developers aren't showing. Nintendo showed all these third-party games, and people still didn't buy them.
Yeah, big for fans who are enthusiastic about gaming. That's not. I don't really think that's a general consumer. The general consumer is I guess the casual, I should say.
The casual consumer is probably just gonna buy a PS4 and Xbox One. Like the casual consumer that doesn't know anything. They're just probably going to buy a PS4 and Xbox One.
That's why you market it on the TV. That, you know, let's say they watch a sports match in America, or a sports match. Then there's a commercial break. Nintendo shows a commercial of a multiplat being taken on the go. That'll probably entice them. Come on.
Maybe. Possibly, maybe. It's not a guarantee. There's nothing that you can sit here and tell me that the casual consumer who's brain dead about anything, which to me is getting less and less real, because casual consumers at this point have smartphones. Okay, they have smartphones and they have friends. If they don't know something, they can ask a friend that's a gamer, or they can go on their smartphone and they can research. They can type it in. So this casual consumer that's just an idiot that you're saying that doesn't know anything, and it might just see a commercial, then say, okay, I'm gonna buy this game because I saw this commercial on TV. That is less and less apparent because people are cutting their
No. That's not.
Go ahead.
Okay, if you were like an average consumer, I should say, and you know, you go to work every day, you don't have time to play your PS4, Xbox One, PC whenever you want to. Then they see, let's say they like FIFA. They see FIFA on the Switch commercial. Then they be like, I can play it and I can play this and work when I'm in a break or something, or I can play this in a park. I can play this anywhere. That's a selling point.
It is. I agree with you. It's a selling point. If the Switch was exactly like the PS4 and Xbox One in every single way possible, then we'd probably get more of these games. But it's not. If it was a crap, if they can crap out a port in 2 seconds, then yes. Then I would be like, yep, this is perfect. Yes, I would say yes, this is perfect. Everything's going to come out. And I think more developers would also say the same thing. Heck, we had an article from THQ Nordic just today saying that, hey, they wish that they put more power into the system and the hardware, but it is what it is. We'll work our way around it. So that's THQ Nordic, who's even bringing games to the Nintendo Switch, saying, well, it's not the same. We're having some, they even said this. And like I said, you shouldn't take everything that they're saying at 100% value, but they even said that it's been a challenge to get battle chasers, to run on the Switch smoothly. Battle chasers. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Battle Chasers, but it's a 2D RPG with some 3D elements in there as well. And it literally looks like a PS3 game or an Xbox 360 game. Probably with some more advanced techniques than those systems, but it's nothing graphically crazy. And they're saying
that's strange. The indie games are pretty much that, and they have no problem porting games like that to the Switch.
This isn't an indie game, but yeah, I see.
It's a 2D RPG, isn't it?
The battles are in 2D, but when you explore, that's full 3D.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the battles are 2D.
Then
2D
I guess
battles.
then I guess it's not the same because it.
Oh, I'm just saying this. Like, if you think that even with an indie game, that people can just port out something and it can be great, that's not the case. You got to take time. It takes resources, and that's for indie developers. For bigger developers, if you expect them to just have all their games ready and get quality ports out in this calendar year, it's definitely not going to happen. And I said that back in January. People got mad at me. I said it again, like in March. People got mad at me. Now I'm going to say it again. There's some people that get mad at me. But it
doesn't have to be this year. What about next year? Couldn't they port games then?
Next year we'll see. I think there's definitely going to be a lot more announcements for next year than there were this year. Because of the sales. Really.
Well, I hope Call of Duty comes to the system. I hope Anthem comes to the system.
Anthem's not going to come, but Call of Duty's definitely going to come at some point.
Oh, right. Yeah, they didn't port Frostbite 3 yet.
However, I will say this. If Call of Duty comes to the Switch, and if it's good, if they make a custom Call of Duty, and if it's good, and if people don't buy it, I never, ever want to hear, and the Switch will have a good install base too by then, maybe next year. I never, ever want to hear people complain about about Call of Duty again. I don't want to hear a single complaint again. Never again do I hear a complaint. If it doesn't sell, it better sell. It better sell, because all these people that are crying for Call of Duty, that are complaining and crying, I don't think there's a lot. I think there's a vocal minority.
Well, I do agree with you. It better sell. I want to see third-party games on the system.
And that's what I've been saying to a lot of people. They get mad at me. I had the debate with Retro Death. I said, guys, the direct result of what's happening with the Switch is, one, because Nintendo doesn't want to make hardware that's exactly like PS4 and Xbox One, and two, because of bad sales on the Wii U. Those are the two things, and like I said, those are a lot of things that it makes a factor into whether the system's going to get support. It's a factor. It's plain and simple. It's a factor. You see stuff like Japanese developers. You see a lot of Japanese developers announcing their games for the Nintendo Switch, or you see more. I mean, there's obviously some games that haven't been announced yet, but you see stuff like Dragon Quest. You see big games. You see NIS America, Disgaea 5, which is a big game for them coming over. You saw a lot of developers announcing their games. You know why? Because the Switch fits with what they're trying to do from a technical perspective, and also from a fan base perspective. They know that their games are going to sell on Switch. Disgaea 5 is selling okay for what they're looking for. Is selling because they know that Nintendo fans are going to buy their games. That's a big part, dude. If the support isn't going to be from the fans, then
is Namco sure that Dragon Ball Fighter Z is going to sell well on the Switch?
Of course, the Dragon Ball Fighter Z is going to come, and yes, they know that it's going to sell on the Switch because Japan. The thing is, like, you have to factor in Japan. Japan is all about portables. The Switch is selling absolutely amazing. Switch games are selling great. Bomberman has sold 500,000 copies on the Switch. Bomberman.
Yeah, because portability, that's a big thing in Japan.
Not only portability, but the fact that Nintendo fans love Bomberman. Bomberman has been a franchise that's been around and identifies with a lot of Nintendo fans. Konami knew that they could exploit that, even with a game that was average. They can exploit Nintendo fans' nostalgia with Bomberman. Not sure if it sell 500,000 copies if it was some other game or some other franchise, because it's Bomberman. What I'm trying to tell you is that developers look at the install base. They look at the fans. That's what they look at. They look at what's sold before. They look at the history. They look at a wide variety of things. It's planned. It's not something that just happens out of nowhere. It's planned for a long time. The reason why we're getting stuff like Disgaea and we're getting stuff like Dragon Ball Z, Xenoverse, or whatever is because the developers feel that there could be an install base. There could be a fan base to buy their games. They feel that it will sell. A lot of Western developers don't feel that their games will sell. Whether they're a good ports, they don't feel they're going to sell.
That hasn't always been the case before. There were times where the predecessor of the system has sold well, and they still didn't bring any games to the system. There were times like that, like the PS3, Nintendo 64.
Like, can you give me? I mean, I would bet that there was times that sometimes the game doesn't sell when they bring it over, but that's just sometimes. In general, that's what developers are looking.
Final Fantasy was a big thing for Nintendo systems, and that Final Fantasy VII still skipped the Nintendo 64.
Do you know? Do you know why Final Fantasy VII skipped the Nintendo 64?
Yeah, cartridge. Yeah, I know. Okay. The cartridge is limited.
So that doesn't suit your point. that doesn't fit your point. We're talking about sales here. We're talking about the fan base as far as what's going on there. That is completely different.
Yeah, the N64 sold well, didn't it? It sold 30 million units.
And the PlayStation 1 sold 100 million units plus. The PlayStation absolutely dominated the N64 in sales. Like, it's not even close. I mean, you're aware of that, right?
Yeah, I know that, but it still had an install base.
Okay, but the problem is that you're not making a coherent point with what you're trying to say. We're talking about the fan base and sales. Now, you're bringing up something that has nothing to do necessarily with the fan base or sales, and more to do with technology and business when it comes to like the technology that they're using. So that's the reason why Final Fantasy. If Nintendo used this, and Square Enix, that wouldn't have happened. That would have happened. It was bad business dealing, and the fact that Nintendo used cartridges. So that has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. That has nothing to do with that. And even at the time that Final Fantasy VII was released, the PlayStation 1 was absolutely destroying the Nintendo 64 in sales because the PlayStation 1 had been out since 1993 or 94, depending on what region, I guess. And that was 97, I think, when Final Fantasy came out. So that was 3 years later. So N64 was out in 96. So yeah, the PlayStation had a huge install base lead on it and was selling quite a bit more pretty much in all. And third-party developers were like, we're all going to PlayStation. This is cheap. So yeah, you're not making a quality point here, dude.
But wouldn't they, go around compressing the game just for the install base? Wouldn't they do that?
What?
Wouldn't they, downgrade? Not really downgrade, but compression.
Are you aware of how big Final Fantasy VII is on the PlayStation? If you compressed it, it would literally be like dots running around. Are you aware of how big that game was at the time that it was released and how much memory that the PlayStation can hold compared to an N64 cartridge? Are you aware?
Yeah, like probably 4 or 5 times the memory.
Dude, you can't just compress something like Final Fantasy onto an N64 cartridge. You could try, but I wouldn't recommend it. You want to get a crappy, craptastic port, sure. But they're not going to do that. They're definitely not going to do that. Look, we're kind of going off path here. What I'm trying to say is that your point of Final Fantasy doesn't suit what you're trying to say right now. It doesn't make your point. It really goes against with what you're trying to say, actually, and it has almost nothing to do with it, to be honest. The whole point with ports and what's going on here is we're talking about the modern day. We're talking about, I know you brought up about how sometimes they don't sell as well if the fan base bought it before. Well, if we're talking about that, there's no animosity, there's no technical issues or anything like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if developers feel if a fan base is going to buy a game based on what's happened before when things aren't in that type of situation that Final Fantasy was in. And the problem is that with the Wii U is that people didn't buy the games, whether they were good ports or not. Games weren't being bought, and the system flopped. Therefore, you didn't get them. Therefore, developers didn't plan their games for that system, the Nintendo Switch, especially with dev kits going out so late. Now that the Switch is selling better, now that we're going to see that, hey, potentially the Switch is doing well, are developers going to plan more games for the Switch? Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. There's a lot of people that are panicky and that are reactionary. And
because Nintendo hasn't had, you know, third-party support for like, what, 10 years? Like, proper third-party support. 10 years.
They had third-party support on the Wii U.
The Wii U had third-party support, but that didn't even last long.
Well, that's because Nintendo did a bad job of selling the system, and people didn't buy the games. So that's the reason why it didn't last long. If you want, and I mean, the Wii got great. The Wii got amazing third-party support, and if you compare it to the Wii U, and also so far with the Nintendo Switch, but the Nintendo Switch is new, but the Wii got absolutely amazing third-party support. But you know the reason why the Wii got third-party support is because it sold, which goes back to my first point. The Wii got if the Wii didn't sell, we would have seen PS2 and Xbox or PS2 and Xbox ports, but we wouldn't have seen as many games that we got. The reason why the Wii got games in year 2, year 3, year 4 is because it sold so well, because it was killing it in sales. That's the reason why, and that's the plan that Nintendo's going with the Switch. They tried your plan. They tried your plan. Let's test out the audience. Let's try to get these PlayStation and Microsoft fans. Let's try to get them over to our system. It failed miserably. And now you're asking them to do the same thing. 3 years ago or 2 years ago when they were planning this, they're not going to do the same thing that just failed. They're going to do the strategy that got them the biggest install base in the first place, which was the Wii.
Because they didn't do a good... Like you said, Nintendo didn't do a good job with the Wii U. They didn't, make sure developers don't bring over ports or...
Here's the thing. You can't predict all of this stuff. You have to plan for the best possible outcome. And the best possible outcome is trying to raise the install base as high as possible, as fast as possible with your first-party games, because you know for a fact that first-party games will sell the system. That's the most important thing, and that's the plan that they took. And unfortunately, for the people who love third-party games, unfortunately, the plan was also to incorporate Japan, make the system sold in Japan, so therefore they made it portable, which made them use the ARM architecture CPU, Tegra, which made ports not going to be a one-on-one transfer like the Wii got with GameCube and PS2. You know what I'm saying? Or even, with the Wii U with power that's on par. Unfortunately, it's a notch below systems, so we're not going to get those ports necessarily in the first year or whatever the case is. However, this system, the Nintendo Switch, will end up having better support. If it continues selling the way that it's selling, it will blow the Wii U out in major games. It will blow the Wii U out in third-party support. So I'll take my lumps now and then get my cake later, then be like the Wii U and take my cake at the beginning, then get nothing at the end. I like this plan more. I think this plan's working. This plan's working better than the Wii U plan, because the Wii U plan was exactly what you're saying. Oh, well, developers should just test out their games. They should just do it. They should just port them over and get them over now. That's exactly what they did with the Wii U, and they failed. Why do the same plan? No way. You got to do something different. You got to switch it up, and that's what they did. They switched up their plan, and it's working very well for them. So I don't see why people are necessarily all up in arms about it. To me, I think they're doing a good job. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're looking at the sales. You don't have all the third-party support that the Wii U got, but look at the sales. and the sales are going to help get them.
Yeah, but
support.
The reason people had a problem with it in January is that people were concerned that it wouldn't sell,
What?
Like, what if it flops? Is it going to get any support?
What if what flops?
The Switch.
But it's not going to flop. It's going to sell.
It couldn't, sell for the first 1 or 2 years. It could reach 20 million, then stop there. Then the install base would not be active anymore. Then we don't get any ports.
That's probably not going to happen. You know why? Because there's a little game called Pokemon coming to the system. Pokemon has never failed. A mainline Pokemon game developed on a system by Game Freak, because the GameCube had a mainline Pokemon game, but not really. It wasn't developed by Game Freak. It wasn't the same. But there's been no system that's ever had a mainline core Pokemon title that has failed for Nintendo. And the Nintendo Switch is getting a mainline core Pokemon game. And you think that the system could potentially stop selling? No, probably not. There's a mainline Pokemon
before
game.
E3, like we did before we knew, or we knew Pokemon was coming. The system.
We just found out that Pokemon was coming to the system. It's coming to the system next year. Next year we have Fire Emblem, we have Pokemon, we have Metroid Prime, we have Yoshi, we have Kirby, we have No More Heroes or Travis Touchdown game, we have Shin Megami Tensei 5. That's already a pretty good lineup for 2018. I don't think it's going to stop selling after
Wait, Shin Megami Tensei is coming 2018?
Yes, coming 2018.
Well, when is Pokemon coming? I mean, they did really tease 2018, but yeah, we don't know when it's coming.
Doesn't matter. Whenever it comes, it's going to sell systems. Whether it's 2018 or it's 2019. If you're saying that it's going to stop selling in 2018, okay, then it'll pick back up in 2019 when Pokemon comes out. Not only that, but did you know that Level 5, have you ever heard of a game called Yokai Watch?
Yes, I know Yokai Watch.
Yeah, that's a pretty big system seller. And that's Level 5 has always said that they're starting to develop games on the Nintendo Switch. So Level 5, a 3DS developer that really helped boost the sales on the 3DS, are starting to develop games on the Nintendo Switch. They also have a brand new IP in development for it as well. So Japanese developers are going to come over. So I don't see how this system is going to fail based on anything that we've known at this point. You're just kind of guessing to try to make your point, it seems like. Based on what we know now, looks like the system's going to continue selling well.
Okay, if that were the case, why are third parties taking a wait and see approach? Wouldn't they know the system's gonna sell well?
I've already explained to you the system has been selling well now. No, third-party developers didn't know if the system was going to sell before the system launched. No, they didn't know that. No, there's no way for them to know.
No, like right now.
Okay, and it takes planning. They're not going to see, oh, it's selling. It started selling in March. Okay, all of our games, we're going to start putting them over.
No.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to announce all of a sudden these ports out of nowhere.
You said, we know the Switch is going to sell well for now because it has games coming. So won't third parties know as well that...
And Nintendo said that it's doubled. Third-party developers, yes, they do know, and yes, they're going to start planning games and putting them out there. But just because they haven't announced them doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're living in the moment. You're thinking, you're panicking because of right now. That's the problem that I have with your arguments online. Is that you panic and you say, "Oh, well, this is how it is right now, so that's how it's always going to be." Why aren't third-party developers doing this right now? You need to calm down, take a chill pill, relax, and let the sales do the talking, because then third-party developers will start putting games out on there. Stop living so much in the moment and realize that third-party developers do not announce everything right then and there because the system's selling good now. They're going to plan. They're going to take their time. They might even build custom engines, and then they're going to release their game. Is the Switch going to get everything? No, the Switch isn't going to get everything, because sometimes developers don't want to make a game for the Switch, or they don't feel that it's a good business decision for them, even with a good install base. So is it going to get everything? No, but is it going to get a lot more support because of the sales? Yes, they're taking a wait-and-see approach because the Wii U flopped. Because when they were planning all of their games, the Wii U was a flop, and Nintendo got out dev kits in 2016. So that's the reason why they're taking a wait-and-see approach. They don't really have a choice but to take a wait-and-see approach for some of these developers. They didn't really have a choice. If Nintendo got out dev kits in 2013, which wouldn't be real because the Wii U was still there, but if they got out dev kits earlier, and if the system was on par with the PS4 and Xbox One, then they probably wouldn't have been taking as much of a wait-and-see approach. But unfortunately, those are not the things. Fortunately for us, this system is going to sell a lot. I know it's going to sell a lot, but I'm not the one who's investing millions into games being ported over. The third-party developers are. So you have to take a little bit more of an accurate and a business-like approach. Remember, these aren't like jabronis running these businesses. These are businessmen that sit there and plan and wait. Okay? They're not going to sit there and panic like people online and start announcing everything for the Switch. They're not going to do that. Why? There's no point in doing that. There's no point in doing that at all, especially when you haven't even started working on it, or if it's very early in development. why? That makes no sense. Like, makes no sense at all, dude. I'm Retro Death. Retro Death is talking. I'm not cutting him off. I'm not okay. I'm talking about a talking teacher doesn't like me that I cut off Retro Death. Oh, okay. I thought you were about to say that I was cutting him off. I was like, what? I didn't name call or cut him off today at all. Do you have anything else to add? I'm not sure if I mean we can talk about anything else, but I mean we might be done here. What do you think? Okay, I think we're probably done here.
Why don't their party say that they're gonna support the system right now? So let people know they're not gonna not support it.
Third-party developers have made multiple statements on the Nintendo Switch when it comes to things. Certain third-party developers said that they're going to support it. Other third-party developers said that we're going to wait. And third-party developers say that we're not sure if our game is going to come. There's already been multiple announcements on there. So it looks like you're talking about certain games or you're upset about certain things, which I've already discussed, whether it's Far Cry or whether it's Call of Duty or whatever the case is. So I'm pretty sure we're done here. I want to thank you, FuriousSrantz, for coming on, dude. Seriously, like that was really awesome. That you came on, and I enjoy you coming on and you manning up. A lot of people wouldn't come on to this. I'm
kind of surprised I held a candle to your argument. I expected to lose in the first 15 minutes or not.
You lost pretty quick. I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but you lost the argument pretty quickly. I mean, I don't really think that you made any. You made some good points, just me being honest. You made some good points, but many of your points kind of drifted off into, well, why? I want this now. I want this now. And you never really countered my points of business-wise. You never countered my points of like sales. You just kind of said, well, this isn't good because this came out afterwards. Or you made up a lot of excuses for games. And unfortunately, when you're talking about what the business partners are thinking, third-party developers, you have to come up for logical reasons and all that. And I came up with the logical reasoning that a lot of a lot of fans, as far as Nintendo fans, they don't like to buy third-party games as much. And we've seen that, whether it was a good port or a bad port, whether it came day and date or not day and date, a lot of third-party games flopped on the Wii U. And I made my point that third-party games that sold well on the Wii, well, it was because of the install base. The install base was very high, even though Call of Duty doesn't sell anywhere near as PS4 or PS3 and 360 at the time. It sold a lot because there's a ton of people to sell the game to. So I think I made my point, but I think you did a good job talking, dude. You definitely didn't do a bad job, but I definitely wouldn't say that. I'd probably say that you got beat pretty badly here, but it's okay. It's definitely okay. I'm still going to follow you on Twitter, and I know we're probably still going to get into more discussions on Twitter and everything. So I thought it was a good debate.
We could do more debates in the future.
We could definitely do more debates in the future if something comes up, man. But I want to thank you.
It's pretty fun, even though I lost.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
It was. Yeah, I know.
It's not.
I'm fine with. I expected to lose anyways.
It's okay. It's okay, man. I think you did a good job. You just coming on here was cool, but there's a lot of people that won't even come on here. There's a lot of people that will make excuses. You came on here, you argued your points, you tried to make your point. You brought up some examples. You did your best in order to facilitate a conversation. We had a good an hour plus conversation. It didn't go in circles too many times. I mean, just a little bit. So I would definitely give you an A for effort, dude. That was a great effort by you. I think that you came on and you did a good job overall. It's just that you didn't make too many great points that can really penetrate what I was saying. But I think you still did a great job, dude. And I appreciate you coming on, man. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. No problem. Thanks for having you on.
Wait, we didn't talk about how that Fast RMX thing. No, you said these.
Yeah, Fast RMX. It's something that it's not really much to talk about, but Fast RMX, it's not a second-party game. It's a third-party game. It's completely.
So.
Go ahead.
So what is a second-party game? Isn't it like a third-party exclusive?
Yeah, it's a third-party exclusive. That's exactly what it is. And
isn't that what Fast RMX is, or is the team behind it a first-party studio?
Fast RMX is not a first-party studio. It's an indie studio. They're called Shinen. They're based out of Germany, and they identify with Nintendo fans a lot. So therefore, they make their games for Nintendo fans. A lot of the times they focus on just making the best possible game for the Nintendo system. But Nintendo doesn't fund, doesn't develop, or doesn't publish any of the games that they put out so far. They're completely a third-party studio. Usually second party is like there's like a long-term, like Nintendo's funding, or Nintendo has a long outstanding like relationship with them. They're having developers help out with them. There's usually a combination of factors. Like for example, like Next Level Games. Nintendo doesn't own Next Level Games. That could be like a second party studio. They don't 100% own them, but they have a long-term contract in order to do games with them. And like Next Level Games announced that, I think during the Wii U era, they announced that, hey, we're kind of like a second party developer for Nintendo. Long-term contracts, Nintendo's funding a lot of development. Sometimes Nintendo might even have some staffers work with them on things. You know, it's not just like a completely business relationship. Like for example, Skyrim. Skyrim is not a second party game, even though it's being published by Nintendo. It's not a second party game because Nintendo didn't help develop that game at all. All they did is publish it for like a goodwill perspective. You know what I'm saying? But it's completely developed and made by Bethesda. So very different circumstances with a fast RMX. Definitely 100% third party. And that's why the developers with Fast RMX, Shin'en, they put out a game on I think a PS4. They put out a Nato Stray or something like that, or one of the games that were on Wii U. They put that game out on PS4, and they've put other stuff on PS4 as well. I think they have like Art of Balance that's on PS4 too. So that development studio definitely makes games for other systems as well. So there's not really much to debate on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, right, I guess that does it for this debate. Well,
all right. Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate you coming through.
One thing. Why don't you go on Discord that often? I mean, I see it does say you're online, but I never really see you chat on the Discord.
I'm usually I'm in my own private server Discord for the Patreon backers.
Oh, so you have like a Patreon Discord?
Yeah, I got a Patreon Discord.
That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming out. I do appreciate it. Thanks everyone to watching. Well, we're gonna go ahead and say something.
Nothing. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Got it. Okay. So make sure you check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook, Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on all of our social media. Check out FuriousRantz16. That's his tag, or that's his @ on Twitter. So check him out. Follow him if you want to. Follow me on Twitter as well @ PlayerEssence. And I want to thank everyone for coming out to the live stream and for the debate. And we'll see you guys for the next one. Bye-bye.